right, welcome back to a new week of Student of the Gun Radio, and welcome. We're going to help you get through it. As a matter of fact, because it is Monday, and we know that, well, you know, Jared, do you have a case of the Mondays?
I do. I have a case of the Mondays.
You know, I think if I said I had a case of the Mondays at my job, I'd get punched.
Yeah. I'm going to need you to go ahead and come in on Saturday.
That'd be great. You just go ahead and do that. That'd be great. No, it is Monday, and this is Student of the Gun Radio, and I am still your host, Professor Paul Markle. I didn't change over the weekend, and Jared is still with me in the Glass Case of Emotion Studios, coming to you from the sunny Gulf Coast, Biloxi, Mississippi. You are welcome. And you guys don't know this yet, or maybe you read the show intro or the previews, but sometimes it's good to be me. And sometimes I can use what I do to my own advantage. I'm being a little bit sinister today because I've decided that I'm going to interview a friend of mine, a man named Mike Detty. Mike Detty has been a friend of mine for many, 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 many years. We were cohorts together when we started writing as gun writers. And Jared wants to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, before we get too far into the Mr. Detty introduction here, I want to let you guys know that we're going to talk a little bit after we're done talking with Mike. We're going to talk a little bit about the NRA show that we were there over the weekend, and we actually visited with Mike. And the Warrior of the Week, who happens to live in Cadillac, Michigan. It must be nice up there. Anyway, the Warrior wants to talk about hardware this week.
All right. Well, without further, like I said, I've known Mike for many years now. I don't know, 10, 12, 15, I don't know, back into the 90s. And him and I have written for several of the same publications over the years, and we've shared adult beverages and spoken about some of our favorite editors and our least favorite publishers. Well, Mike wrote a book, and all of you hip cats know that my friend Mike was knee-deep, elbow-deep, neck-deep into the whole Operation Wide Receiver, Fast and Furious, all that nonsense that your government was engaged in the name of keeping guns out of the hands of bad people. And apparently the idea to keep guns out of the hands of bad people was to funnel them into the hands of bad people and then hope that in the future they changed their minds and surrendered them. But without further ado, because I know he's waiting, he's hanging out patiently on the line. Mike, are you there?
I am, Paul. Thanks for having me today.
Well, thank you for joining us. And you released the original book, was it 2 years ago or 3?
Actually, that book debuted at the NRA meeting in 2013, so it's been 2 years now.
Okay. And so now it's time for essentially a paperback version with a little bit of revision.
Yeah, we went back. I wrote a new preface for the book and included some information that I didn't have originally there in 2013, and it's coming out in paperback with a different title, so it's going to be a little bit cheaper. For all you guys that don't have a public library near you, you can buy the book, save a few bucks, and read a true story about gun smuggling in Mexico.
Now, public library, that's where homeless people go to make BM, right?
Yeah, or to look at porn on the internet.
Well, there you go. Okay.
But a few of them in our country do have my book, and I prefer people buy the book, and that way they can loan it out to their like-minded friends. In fact, when I give these books away, which I often do at gun shows and NRA meetings, I ask people to circulate that book among their circle of like-minded patriots, because basically the book, is my story. It's about a guy that was just trying to do the right thing and be a good American, and got swept up in something that turned out to be
no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, just a bad deal. And writing the book was, for me, it was supplying instant karma to the people at ATF and DOJ that did me wrong and did our country wrong.
And that's something, I read the hardcover book, and thank you. And the hardcore students of the gun know about this, and they should, because we've talked about it previously. But I wanted to take an opportunity to get you to kind of retell the story, because quite frankly, there's a lot of people listening today that weren't listening 2 years ago. And it's sad that we live in a nation where people have such like microscopic ADD squirrel attention spans. I don't know what to do, but we got to keep retelling the story, and we have to convince Mike, I don't know if you know these people in your life. I'm sure you do, but you have the aunts or uncles or dads or moms or what have you that were raised in the 50s and 60s, and they just don't believe that anyone that works for the United States government would actually do things deliberately underhanded, wrong, incorrect, slimy.
I was one of those people. I mean, that's how I ended up in this mess, elbow deep, like you said. I trusted these people implicitly because they were the good guys, according to my moral and value set, and they would never do me wrong or ask me to do something that might be illegal. And it took me a long time to figure this out. But that was one of the reasons for writing the book, is that I could see a lot of people in my friends, my group of friends, that would do exactly the same thing based on the information they'd been given. They'd do the same thing that I did and follow these people blindly and trust them implicitly.
Yeah, we need your help, and don't worry, you're doing the right thing. Attaboy, patriot, and
exactly. Your country thanks you.
Yeah, your country thanks you.
You don't know what this means to your country, and thank you very much. And by the way, you might get shot in the face, but you're a good patriot.
Lord.
There's actually, reading this book, obviously Mike gave me the book at NRA show or a SHOT Show, or it was one of the shows, so I knew he was still alive.
Yeah.
But reading this book, I was like, man, is Mike going to survive this?
Yeah, spoiler alert, Mike doesn't die. But yeah, Jared's absolutely right. When I was reading it, I'm thinking, and Mike never, he was a good CI. He never shared this information with his friends. And, Mike, how many times did you and I see each other or spend time together while all this was going on over the years? Many times, I'm sure.
Between SHOT Show and writers' meetings, I probably saw you 8 or 10 times while this was going on.
And all that was going on in the background. And, I'm reading the book, and I'm like, Mike, be careful. Watch out.
Yeah.
Watch your back. I was like, it's okay. I know that he lives. So good job. How's your neighbors and their dogs? Are they doing well?
My neighbors and their dogs, everybody's, it's funny. I live on a cul-de-sac, and there's 5 houses on the cul-de-sac. 3 of those people have moved. I don't want to believe it was because of me, but you never know.
But you might not feel bad if it happened. Did the crazy guy with the dog move away?
No, and somebody.
He's still there.
Somebody has informed me that he has a case of brain cancer, and I just hope that and for what people don't know what Paul's talking about, I had a run-in with a guy walking his dog one day with my friendly Labrador Champ, and he threatened me with a gun. And anyway, so supposedly he has brain cancer, and I hope that had caused his aberrant behavior.
Mm-hmm.
He's still alive as far as I know, and has not caused me any more problems. So
you're still
he
still
lives
got
down the block from me.
You still got the same place. There's no dark colored sedans with tinted windows sitting at the end of your cul-de-sac right now, are there?
Yeah, right now, let me see. I don't see any. Oddly enough, 4 nights ago at 2:35 in the morning, somebody tried the handle on my security door. I have security iron and security doors all around the house, each and every entrance and window, and it makes a distinctive sound when you try it. Of course, there's a cross bolt that locks it.
Mm-hmm.
But I sat right up in bed, and Suede, who's one of my new watchdogs, she bolted off. She was running so hard through the hallway that it was like a cartoon. I could hear her feet slipping. She couldn't negotiate the turn to go down to the front door, and finally she made it and threw herself against it, and it sounded like a bowling ball hitting that security door. gets down in the 70s here at night now, so I've got all the doors, all the windows open for the cool breeze. And Champ, my Labrador, he was so excited. He came back in the bed, barked at me, and was like, "Are you coming?" And as I was trying
come on, Mike, let's go.
I was trying to turn the red dot on my carbine.
Well, you know, if you use an aim point, you can just turn it on, leave it in the medium setting, and leave it for about 4 years, and then you can change the batteries. You do know that, right?
Anyway. By the time I got to the front door, there was the security light in front of the garage had gone on. So whoever was here, whoever tried to handle it, some people say, well, maybe it was a bobcat, maybe it was a coyote. I don't know any that know how to use a doorknob yet. So.
I don't know any of those either. They might. They are advancing. They're advancing.
But so anyhow, we stayed outside for a while, and that stuff like that happens, 3 or 4 times a year, and it just makes for a sleepless night because you don't want to go back to sleepy land when you might have all the fun. So. Anyhow, that was our recent excitement. So
now I know you've probably been asked in various radio interviews, and you've done a ton. Have you done television interviews yet? I don't know. Forgive me for not knowing. I know Cheryl has.
Just the major one with Cheryl Atkinson from CBS News. That was the first time I spoke publicly about my involvement with ATF, and then a kind of a follow-up interview with William Lajeunesse on Fox News.
Now, what story are you asked to of all this nonsense and all this stuff that went on, and is there one specific story or detail from the book that you'd like to share with the audience as kind of a teaser for them?
Well, the people ask me, did you ever pull a gun, or did somebody pull a gun on you? And the answer to that is no. There was one evening where a group of guys came out. There was one regular buyer, and he was always bringing associates from different cartels because his cousin would have these barbecues, and she would tell her friends from Mexico, hey, if your guys need guns, I've got a hookup. Here's the deal. You're going to pay me $100 finder fee for every gun you buy from this guy, me being that guy. Mm-hmm. So every time this one consistent guy came out, he'd have somebody new with him. They brought a guy. He was about the size of a jockey, maybe 5'5", 140 pounds. And whoever he was with, he apparently ranked high enough in the organization to have a bodyguard. And most of these guys I dealt with, I could pick up and throw across the room. I mean, physically, I wasn't intimidated by any of them, except for this guy. This bodyguard was about 6'4", maybe about 280. Younger, a lot younger than me, built solid, wouldn't shake my hand. And at one point during the proceedings, I was filling out some paperwork at the table.
I remember.
And this guy stood right behind me. And there was no reason, he wasn't doing anything other than standing behind me with the intention of trying to intimidate me or scare me. And I told the one guy that spoke English and Spanish, I said, hey, tell this jerk to go over there and sit on the couch. And then I turned around and stared at this guy, and he stared at me for, what seemed like an hour, is probably a few seconds, and finally went over and sat down on the couch. Now, the next day when I had my debriefing out at the federal building, one of the agents told me, he said, hey, we're trying to ID the big guy. We think he's wanted for a few murders down in Mexico. And I relayed this story to him about, my own real life Mexican standoff in my living room. And the guy started laughing. He said, well, Mike, listen, you do whatever you need to do. Just you rest assured that we'll pay for your carpets to be steam cleaned once everything's done. And I thought, life in the last 12 months has certainly got a lot more interesting. Here we are talking about killing a cartel hitman in my living room.
Yeah.
Now the neat thing about, not the neat thing, but one of the interesting things, this guy was not untypical in that he drenched himself in Old Spice aftershave, which is not uncommon for these people I was dealing with. I say these people, I don't want to sound like a racist, but Mexican nationals, and you know, they were wearing the ostrich skin boots and ostrich skin belts and straw hats and so forth. So they looked very stereotypical as people that you would identify as Mexican nationals, or in this case, cartel members. Anyway, I was just making this worse. Anyhow,
that's cool. That's cool. Don't offend the thugs. Don't offend the gangsters.
Yeah.
They
Listen,
have thin skin.
If any of you guys are listening, I apologize. You know I love you.
I don't think we have a big Mexican gangster listening audience, but you never
Texas
know.
Texas is our number one state.
That is true. Texas is our number one state.
I would say that the common set between listeners of Los Tigres del Norte and Student of the Gun would be probably a null set. But just in case. Anyway, so there was one night, this was a few months later, I had a Suburban, and that Suburban took up every inch of my garage space. So when I walked into the garage, I usually hit the garage door opener and walked around the back of the truck to get in the driver's seat. And I did that one night. It was late. I was getting ready to go out to a fast food place and get something to eat before I went to bed. And I got just about to the rear tire on my truck and got hit with a tremendous adrenaline surge. Hair stood up on the back of my neck. And I raced to the driver's seat, opened the console, got my gun and a flashlight out. Still not understanding. I mean, I had still not been able to figure out what was causing this panic. But I didn't question it or stand there and hesitate. Anyway, I got the gun and the flashlight. When I got back to the garage door and turned the corner, there was a lingering smell of Old Spice aftershave. So it made me wonder, you know, this was 10:30 at night. Is this the same guy that I'd had the run-in with in my living room? If so, what's he doing back here? Why is he lurking around my garage at 10:30 at night? And was he just casing the place? Was he here to do a hit? You know, there's all these questions that can't be answered. But, yeah.
Well, thank God for Old Spice. For the tell. Yeah. He obviously is not a professional, because professional wouldn't musk up before they go out. So that's good.
You wouldn't think so.
You know.
The next day I went through the backyard. My backyard butts up against not a major road, but it would have been the road they would have need to take to come out here, and look for, you know, a beer bottle or cigarette
butts or something.
Any indication that somebody had been sitting there casing the house for any amount of time, and I never found anything. But it's interesting to note that there was a rancher named Krent in southern Arizona who was killed by he was killed by a cartel member. Apparently he had found some marijuana stashed on his ranch in southern Arizona and called Border Patrol, who came and hauled it off. Shortly after that, he was visiting a water tank, and somebody shot him and took off back to Mexico. His next-door neighbor, a rancher, guides hunts for a living, and mountain lion hunts, and is a professional tracker. He followed the tracks all the way back to Mexico. And one of the comments that I read about in the paper was that this person he was following was very big. He thought probably about 6'4", between 250 and 290 pounds, he estimated. And I thought to myself, how many 6'4", 280-pound guys do the Mexican cartels have?
Probably not too many.
And, yeah, I mean, I would think it would be a very small set of people. So, you know, who knows?
So what Mike Deddy has decided to do, being the good former Marine or United States Marine that he is he's decided to kick the hornet's nest yet again and release the softcover version of Operation Wide Receiver, an informant's struggle to expose the corruption and deceit that led to Operation Fast and Furious. Did I get that right, Mike?
You got it 100%.
Is this going to be available at your local like Walmart stores and so forth?
I'm hoping, but probably the easiest place to find it at the moment would be Amazon.com.
Amazon.com.
I think it's less than $12, and I know for a fact that they have it in stock. So that's the first place I'd look for it if you're looking to buy it.
Well, all right. Mike, I certainly appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Any others? Oh, Jared, should I put Mike on this? Well, should I put your mom on the spot? Mike, do you remember the story you told me about the first time you met my lovely wife?
In fact, I do, and it was I can never remember the name of that range, but just outside Vegas there.
The one behind the PMC Ammunition Factory.
Yeah, we just had Mom on Friday for the grad program. She told some stories on Dad, so go ahead and tell a story on Mom.
I kind of forget the particulars.
Well, it was a day before shot range day.
Signing in, and somebody didn't recognize your name, and your mom kind of had to let them know who you were. was that the story you're thinking?
Yeah, that's the story I was
yeah,
because she doesn't remember that.
Yeah, that's been that was where you and I first met. That was probably 17 years or so ago.
Yeah, it was way back before when the media day at the range was actually manageable, and there was like maybe a couple hundred people there total.
I'm not even sure that existed.
Yeah, well, it was the pre-shot. I remember exactly where it was because it was right outside of what's the town with the dam?
Boulder.
No. The town with the Hoover Dam in it. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and where the PMC Ammunition Factory is. Maybe it is Boulder. Is it Boulder?
Boulder City.
Boulder City?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Oh. Mm-hmm. And there's a private range back there, and they had arranged to do some demos the day before shot, and you were there, and I was there, and a bunch of other media people were there, and that's the first time you got to meet Mrs. Markle.
Yes, and I'm not sure I've seen her. No, I have.
Oh, yeah.
I have. But it was a good chance to meet you, and I recognized you for not only by hearing your name, but seeing your picture in the articles that you'd written and stuff. And I think you had come out with probably your first book about your combat experiences as a Marine in Iraq.
Oh, you're talking about
the Blue Book.
You're talking about The Zone.
Yeah, The Zone.
Life and Death in the Corps.
I think we should bring that book back.
Oh man, dude, I don't know. Maybe we probably should bury it. Fun, yeah.
That was your first book, right?
Yeah, and you know what's funny, Mike, is that was so far early into the. I got with a publisher. I offered it to a publisher, and they're like, "Yeah, we like it, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to make it available on the internet." Right? It's going to be an electronic book that people can read from the internet.
That would be good nowadays.
But. Yeah, and well, and that was the new thing. That was like in the late 90s. That was the new thing, was they were going to do books on the internet. And that publisher, they did a print version. They made a print version available, and then within 6 months they were out of business.
So where do your royalty checks go?
I don't know. They're somewhere in outer space right now. There's like, well, the good news is you have the right to republish. The bad news is we're going out of business. So thank you.
Well, as I recall, I enjoyed reading that book, and I'm sure that fans of Student of the Gun would like to take a look at it.
I was going to say, let's leave it up to the fans if you guys want us to bring that book back.
I don't even know. I don't even know if I have a copy of it anymore.
I do.
Shut up.
Worst comes to worst, put it on a CD, take it down to Kinko's, and
there you go.
Have them print you some spiral-bound copies.
It's funny how, Mike and I have been in the writing game for a long, long time, and how things have changed, Mike. From the heyday of the print publishing to now, I don't know. Does anybody under age 30 actually buy print magazines anymore? I know.
No, they don't. That's one of the problems I've been having. You're way ahead of the curve on, and it's only because of Jared that you're.
I know.
To handle this transition. Of late, one of our past publishers that we shared was having me. After a pay cut, they were trying to have me make videos, and for a guy my age to figure out how to edit a video and do voiceovers and stuff, that's a little much. And what I needed to do was find an 8-year-old that could help me with that. But I still got that court order pending, so that's out of question. But you have Jared, and Jared's a kid, and he's got all this techie stuff figured out. So you're way ahead of the curve on that. But yeah, last week I read Unrepentant Sinner by Charles Askins, and I grew up reading his stuff. I grew up reading Elmer Keith and Skeeter Skelton and Bill Jordan and Jeff Cooper. And the writing game was a whole different story back then. In fact, in this book, Unrepentant Sinner, Charlie Askins is glowing about he had a monthly column in Sports Afield. Yeah. And that was enough to pay his mortgage and feed his family and live on, do a car payment. Things are certainly not like that anymore. That's for certain.
And well, you saw the Death of the Editor piece that I did a few months ago.
Yeah, I did. I did, and I thought that was a nice homage to an old mutual acquaintance of ours. Yeah. I hesitate to call him a friend. I always consider him a friend, although I'm not sure if he ever considered me a friend.
Does an editor ever consider a writer to be their friend? I don't know.
No, but I'll tell you one thing. There were times where I butted heads for other people in that organization, and he was always right there behind me, and that made me feel good that at least I had his loyalty.
Well, and it was that no nonsense thing that people don't understand today. At least, and I'm being that old guy, but seriously, they don't. That with this whole the world of the weblog and the YouTube and the this and the that, they don't understand what it was like to work for a serious no nonsense person. And they weren't no nonsense because they didn't like you or because they were angry with you. It was because they're busy, they had stuff to do, and they didn't have time to chit chat or what have you. And
this was also a person that had military experience.
Oh yeah,
back a lot of years, and then went from the military to clandestine type stuff, and then it somehow ended up in the publishing world. And he sought out people that had military backgrounds or law enforcement backgrounds because of that. He didn't want to spend an hour on the phone asking you about, how your kids are doing and how your new car is and how's your mom and stuff. He didn't give a excuse me. He just didn't care. He didn't have time for it. And that made dealing with him very easy because you got on the phone with him, you told him what you needed or asked him what he needed. He told you, and you were done. And the story. He didn't have time for any extraneous nonsense. And I really enjoyed working with him over the years. I hope he's doing well.
Mike, do you remember the answering machine messages from him? Oh, did you ever get? Or this would happen to me. Like I'd come home because kids back then we had these little boxes that you set on the desk by the phone, and it had a tape in it.
The phone that had a cord.
Yeah, the phone. You would plug it into it, and it would ring. And if you weren't there, this little machine would record what the person said. Anyway, I remember coming home, and it's like, Paul, it's Harry, give me a call. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I call him, and Harry, it's Paul. Yeah, what do you need? I'm like, I'm returning your call. Oh, all right. No, I already took care of that. You need anything else, Paul? No, I'm good. All right, talk to you later. Bye. And that wasn't just a one-time thing. It's like, okay. And I remember...
It's funny. I never went to visit him in the New York headquarters, but according to one of the advertising sales ladies, he used to take stacks of magazines and pile them up around his desk and pile them in such a way that you couldn't open the door completely to walk in. You kind of had to squeeze in there. And she said it's almost as if he's made a bunker in his office.
That's funny.
It's almost like he doesn't want you to come in. I get the feeling he doesn't want me to come in there. I don't know. Good times, good times. And you never know when you're living through the good times until they're over. But
isn't that the truth?
It is. But we're going to have some good times in the future here. Now, as we're recording this, and right, spoiler alert, we did this interview, and we wanted to make it available to everybody on Monday, so you could hear it. As you're hearing this, the NRA show has already ended. So sorry if you didn't make it, but that's just the way it is. And Mike, we got a whole bunch of books to sign at NRA and so forth.
I do. As a matter of fact, stop by. I'll give you one, and you can punch me in the nose or stomach, whatever you want.
Well, we can send them to our third grade teachers so that they know that we're not failures.
Interestingly enough, I got a message from a high school history teacher. I really love this lady, Mrs. Bartlett, Barbara Bartlett. And she started following me on Facebook. And I thought, that's great, because she was one of my favorite teachers. And I posted something about an article I'd written for American Rifleman on a Desert Eagle. And she wrote in the comment box, Mike, whatever persuaded you to become an NRA member? Almost as if, like, hey, friends, I just joined the KKK. Send me comments of your support, I said, well, Mrs. Bartlett, I've always been a firearms enthusiast and a supporter of the Second Amendment. And she didn't reply after that. I think I'm still on her friends list. I'm not sure.
Oh,
but anyhow.
Bless her heart. Bless her heart.
Nice lady. I mean, and I looked at her friends list, and it's not like she went through and friended everybody that I went to high school with. She certainly hadn't. So somehow maybe I made an impression on her or something. Who knows? But I liked history because we're always talking about wars. Mm-hmm. If you're not talking about wars, you're talking about treaties. And so it was always a subject I excelled at because it kind of held my interest.
I was the social studies guy in school. I was never big into math or science or even English. Imagine that. But all of the social studies classes that I took, whether it was history or geography or something of that vein, I enjoyed them really well. I mean, I remember ninth grade geography lessons today that I remember sitting in the class listening into it. I could almost start naming off like the 5 different types of milk producing cattle and, beef cattle and all that kind of stuff, and the main export of Argentina. But that was my thing. And I guess it's well suited because my wife says I have a brain full of useless information. Is that what you're supposed to have as a writer? I don't know.
Well, I think it can certainly enhance the story. I mean, even as a gun writer, we got those guns that we just couldn't say much about. So we talked about the weather and the range conditions and how nice the range master was. And Remington has this brand new bullet, which is a real whiz bang. And before you look at it, you've got 2,000 words there, and only 450 of them are about the gun. Yeah. But Harry didn't seem to mind.
No, and you know how liberating it is. You know what Tom Gresham once told me. He said the best thing I ever did as a gun writer was stop.
That's funny.
He said,
I haven't met a gun writer that is rich. I mean, no. I know people like, oh, you're the luckiest guy in the world. I wish you had your job. No, you don't. No, you don't. You really don't.
Well, and Tom also said, he goes, if you want to make $1 million as a gun writer, he says, you need to start with 2, and then 20 years later, you'll have 1. He goes, where else can you get a job that every year that goes by, you make less and less money for more work? I mean, how do you sign up for that? I don't know. Where do I get in line for that job?
To one source, an old publisher, there are people that are standing in line to
Apparently,
do that
there are people standing in
And-
line for that job.
I wished her the very best of luck, and I
Kids.
meant it in all sincerity. 'Cause,
Kids, what are you going to do?
I have no regrets about the last 21 years. But,
No.
The last year certainly kind of stunk it up for me.
Well, it's doing what we do here at Student of the Gun is really liberating for me because, you know, for the longest time, especially after our mutual friend Harry left, they didn't want stories and they didn't want education. All they wanted was like glorified press releases, you know. And
Well, that's exactly right. You know, in the last year that I worked there at that particular publisher, everything was a top 5 or top 10 list. What are your choices for the top 5 concealed carry holsters? What are the top 10 9mm service full-size handguns? You know, articles like that. And it's really nothing more than going to the manufacturer's website and cutting and pasting.
it's nonsense. It's pointless.
And for that purpose, you know, they can use these little, you know, 22-year-old junior editors they hired right out of college that know absolutely nothing about guns, and they can actually put together an article like that. I just chose not to. I mean, if I was paying for those magazines, that is not an article I want to read. But
it's shallow.
Maybe I'm different.
Well, it's you know, it's like the lowest common denominator thing. It's like, how can we dumb it down to the absolute lowest common denominator? And folks, if you're listening to me right now, and there's I don't care whether it's television, radio, media, whatever, and you realize that they're deliberately dumbing it down for you, you should be insulted, because what they're saying is, you're a highly functioning moron, and so this is the most that you can understand. We have to use really short, small words for little Billy out there, so he understands it. So,
Right.
Don't just accept that. Don't just accept it. I was speaking of 22-year-old fresh out of college journalism majors. Do you remember my bullet in flight? This
is funny.
Did I ever tell you that? When I caught a picture of a bullet in flight. This is actually pretty cool. I was excited about it. Jared was taking the photos. I had a Kimber something with the Crimson Trace grip on it, right? Which is what you do. And so I was testing it, and I had Jared, and he was basically standing off of my right shoulder. And my point was this: I wanted to take several shots so that I could, you know, put the Crimson Trace laser on the target, press the trigger, and then see you see the rise, but the bullet would go where it's supposed to go. Anyway, so he just snapped a whole bunch of shots, and the lighting conditions were just perfect. And you know, fortunately, 45 bullets, you know, 45 ACP bullets go slow enough that you can catch them. So you could see the blur of the bullet in flight in front of the gun as it's going towards a target. And I'm like, wow, that's one of those, you know, one time in a 10,000 shots. So I submitted it, and in the captions, I put, you know, such and such and such, and then I put, you know, note bullet in flight, right? Send it to him thinking, hey, look what I did. I caught a really good shot. They laid the article out, and the junior editor moron guy puts a circle around the ejecting brass, the casing, and an arrow, and writes, note, bullet in flight. Yeah.
Bullet shell casing. I mean, what's the difference, right?
Those are ball bullets, right? That's what you put in guns is bullets. And I thought, you totally missed the 4-leaf clover of catching the flight of the bullet on film. And I was like, whew. Yep, that's what
well, you know, it's
what do I know, huh?
But you know, when we both got started, I think they had 2 titles there at that publisher that were gun related.
Mm-hmm.
And now they've got something like 40 different titles, and they've got all these fresh out of college junior editors who
journalism
know
majors
absolutely nothing about shooting or guns.
Journalism majors that live in New York City, so you know they have a lot of experience in and around firearms. I mean, They might even have a plastic card that gives them permission to own a gun. They might have one of those
They don't carry
special.
them anyways.
They don't carry them. People don't carry guns. What are you, crazy? You can't.
Yeah, they
actually
can go off.
Guns are best locked in safes, and you're allowed to carry that plastic card that says you have the government's permission to possess a gun.
I tell you what, Arizona is a grand place to live if you're a gun owner.
It's free America.
Yeah.
It's free America. All right. Well, Mr. Deddy, we're going to let you go. We've kept you long enough. We truly appreciate you joining us to talk to the Student of the Gun audience. I'm sure that they appreciate it, and that they're going to show their appreciation to Mr. Deddy, USMC, by going to Amazon.com and looking up Operation Wide Receiver. An informant struggled to expose the corruption and deceit that led to Operation Fast and Furious. And if you just put in Operation Wide Receiver and Mike Deddy, Detty, you're going to find it. And when you do find it and when you do buy it, you want to make sure that you leave Mike some feedback, because that's what polite people do.
I'm going to make it easy for him. I'll just put a link directly to that, so I don't have to go to Amazon and search anything. There will be a link directly to it at studentofthegunradio.com. Click on, it'll be episode 153, I believe.
See how the kid is, Mike? See what he does?
It's in their technology. I mean, I'm just amazed. Thank you, Jared. That's awfully nice of you. I'll make it up to you at the NRA meeting.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, Mike, you have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Paul, thanks so much for including me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. We certainly do appreciate Mike taking some time out of his day and taking some time out of his vigilance of watching for Mexican drug cartels and the DEA, NEA, MOUSE from watching him out there in Arizona. But seriously, pick up his book. It's going to be available. If you haven't read it already, if you already read it, well, congratulations. Good job. And if you haven't, go to Amazon and pick up a copy. And if you happen to have been lucky enough to be somewhere where Mike's going to be doing a book signing, check him out. Now, the rest of this entire show and the rest of the show is brought to you by our good friends at Brownells.com. Check those guys out. If you own a gun, Brownells.com has something for you. Velocity triggers designed for precision. If you have a black rifle, they've got a trigger for you. Of course, Century Arms, a sponsor of the Student of the Gun mobile app and Student of the Gun radio. And then last but certainly not least, our friends at SWAT Fuel. And Jared's going to talk about the SWAT Fuel Warrior of the Week and what the question was.
All right, since we started the new thing where you call into the voicemail box, I don't actually have to read the questions anymore, which is nice, but we also get to play your voice on the radio. And this week's Warrior of the Week called in the phone number 682-207-SOTG or 682-207-7684, and he left his question, and I'm going to play it in a second. But first, I want to let you know what you get. What do you get? You get the free bottle of 9mm plus P. Dano is freaking awesome, dude.
That is correct.
Yeah, so what I want you to do is, if you hear your voice on this Warrior of the Week segment, I need you to send me your name, mailing address, phone number, and email that information to Alex, ALEX, at studentofthegun.com.
This is Louis Cody from Impact LLC. My good end of the week question for you is, why do you think that the 357 SIG hasn't taken off more? I know U.S. Air Marshals and a few state police units use it. I think it's a great handgun cartridge, and I wanted to know what you guys thought about the 357 SIG. Thank you, and have a good day.
All right. Well, I have an answer for that. The answer is money. Like he said, he's absolutely correct. The Air Marshals got a super secret depleted uranium round that they use. I kid. And then several state police agencies adopted the 357 SIG cartridge. And the reason that they adopted that, and I've said this previously, but most of the agencies that have the 357 SIG have it because they are using your tax money to buy the ammunition. Because if they had to buy it with their own money, that wouldn't be happening. And you're like, what? Is it really that expensive? Yes, it is. It is that expensive. It is essentially priced like Magnum ammunition would be. It is also a pain in the rump to reload, even for manufacturers, even for somebody like Black Hills or a company that remanufactures ammunition. A lot of folks have found that when they started shooting 357 SIG, they're like, oh, I'm going to get dies, I'm going to get bullets, I'm going to reload mine. And it became a large pain in the rump. And I know that some major companies, ammunition manufacturing companies, that were going to do remans, once-fired brass remans for law enforcement agencies, stopped doing it because it was such a monumental pain in their rump. They're like, they said it's not even worth it. We're going to stop doing it. Now, as far as a cartridge, it's a kick-butt cartridge. It's a really good cartridge. It shoots very, very flat. It shoots a relatively lightweight projectile, depending on which load you get. I've seen them 115. I've seen them 125. I've seen them 150. And the cartridge has been around for a long time. It's been around for better than a decade now. In a lot of you hip cats, you know that the 357 SIG is the 40 Smith & Wesson case necked down to 9mm. You know that, right? Jared, you knew that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, that's essentially what it is. And they're like, hey, we can take this and we can put it in the same size guns as the 40s. Now, it is a pretty snappy cartridge. It provides a pretty healthy recoil for a cartridge that size. It certainly recoils much heavier. It's a high-pressure cartridge. So, and what we found is that a lot of agencies that originally came up with the 357 SIG, or they bought the 357 SIG, are now trading those guns in. Because they're cadets and troopers and what have you. Those people that are not dedicated hardcore gun people are having a hard time with it. So what they're doing is they're trading those in. You know that we had that's what our tool gun, our yellow and black tool pistol, the M&P, it started life as an M&P 357. And we dropped a 9mm barrel in it and changed the magazines out, and now it's good to go, and we can shoot 9mm through it, and it's fantastic. So the good news about the 357 for you guys is this. As agencies tire of the cartridge, or they decide that they're going to basically transition to something else, you're going to see 357 SIG guns, whether they're Glocks or Smith & Wessons or SIGs or what have you, you're going to see those in the police trade-in market. And police trade-in guns are generally not 100%, but I could say about 95% of all the police trade-in guns that you get are going to be a good deal. Let's face it, Glocks and M&Ps are ridiculously simple to work on. If you need to change out springs, you can do it at your kitchen table. It's not hard. And as far as barrels, there's lots of companies out there. KKM is my number one go-to conversion barrel company. It's their KKM Precision. If you're looking to convert a Glock or a Smith & Wesson or anything, if you're looking to put a threaded barrel in your existing gun, you want to check those guys out. So the 357, and you know what, the 357 is really an interesting, what platform it's really interesting in? Carbine. Many, many years ago, when the 357 SIG first came out, dude, did I say a decade ago? No, 2 decades ago. 1994. Not 2000. I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, it was 1994 that the 357 SIG cartridge came out. So 2 decades ago. But when it came out, I had a friend of mine make a 357 SIG chambered M4. And that was pretty cool. So, all right, that's what I think about the 357 SIG. Yes, it is a cool cartridge. It's a flat shooting cartridge. There's nothing wrong with the cartridge except the cartridge in and of itself. So, but if you're spending taxpayer money, drive on, brothers. Drive on, brothers and sisters. Is that it, Jared? That's pretty much it. We gave you a bonus today, did we not? Mm-hmm. So you've got a bonus. Now, we're back from NRA. We spent some time with all of our buddies up in Nashville. And tomorrow, Tuesday, is going to be the What Did Student of the Gun Do in Nashville at NRA Day. So we'll fill you in on all the cool details and maybe some of the dirty details if there are any. I don't think there will be. But until then, thank you for being a student of the gun and a beginner once. Do you like that? That's like Yoda.
Yeah, was it?
That's like reverse talking. All right, enough nonsense. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.